Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Optics in Action, where we spotlight leaders with vision and clarity. And I'm super excited to have with us today Spencer Padway. He is the CEO of Search Nurture and Project FBA. So we're going to talk a little bit about both of those and what those are in a few minutes. But welcome to this episode, Spencer. You want to introduce yourself and tell us, why do you do what you do? Why are you passionate about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Introduction. So CEO Search Nurture. We've been a marketing agency for about almost 8 years now, 7 years, a little over seven. And I've been in this industry for 15 years now. And so why do I do what I do? My secondary business is Project FBA, and my primary business is Search Nurture, which is an Amazon and other e-commerce marketing agency. And when I started this company, like what really got me into marketing was it just happened to be, the right time and the right place. And what got me specifically into building Search Nurture was I had started a small agency that got acquired by another agency, SellPoints. And at SellPoints, there was a lot of really cool things. It was very revenue focused. The CEO was a finance guy. And we had a lot of really, really cool parts. And we saw some inefficiencies in the marketplace, And the way that I looked at it was like, if we could take this, what if we took negative inflection points in business and made them positive? One of the big ones that we saw was we had a lot of technology clients at that company, and they would get funding. And when they got funding, they would bring in a new, VP of demand gen, what have you. And they take that role and they would say, okay, I want to bring the team in-house, but I need to get started. So I'm going to hire an agency. So we would take these on, we'd grow them a bunch, and inevitably you get fired and they'd bring in an in-house agency. And even though it was something that we knew that was happening, it was still like this weird negative inflection point. And so when we started Search Nurture, we're like, okay, how do we make business better? How do we make, work-life balance better? And one of those principles was, okay, what if instead of them having to fire us to build an in-house team, what if we just let them hire the account managers on their account? We'll find people, we'll train them for that job, and when they're ready, they'll take it over. We've turned this negative into a positive. We found somebody a full-time job in the market. We've trained them up. It's a big win-win, right? People unhappy, companies unhappy. And so that was the whole premise of why we started Search Nurture, why I still like doing it. It's like, how can we take these things that could be negative in life, in marketing, in business, and turn them into these net positives for everyone involved, right? The company wins, we win, the employee that's now trained wins. And that's still really the same ethos. We don't offer that service anymore, but it's the same ethos that still drives the companies. How can we change all of this to improve everyone's lives that are involved?
Yeah, I love the impact on people. So I often talk about on this podcast the intersection of people and process, that great people can get frustrated if there's not a great process to follow. And bad processes are bad, right? But even good processes, if people don't follow them, they just get wasted. So I think that turning a negative into a positive, I just love the concept of what you articulated there. That's really, really cool. So with that in mind, who would you say are the people that you impact most?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think, it goes in kind of circles of closeness or, intimacy in business, which is that, like, the people that are going to be closest to me, that's going to be my employees, my team members, they're going to be impacted day to day because everything that we're building, that's what they're spending the most time on, right? Assuming a regular work week, you're talking, 8 hours a day or so of that's what's affecting their lives. So I mean, for sure, they're the biggest impact. And, the secondary impact is the impact that they're making, which is on their clients. And we have four like pillars of purpose, as we call them. And one of them is creating meaningful relationships. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much technology, no matter how much AI, no matter what we bring in, digital marketing currently is a service business. And so that's such a big part of not just building the relation for the sake of building it, but if you want, your team, or if I want my team to be really satisfied in their jobs at the end of the day, they're going to take home the most satisfaction when their clients are satisfied, right? They're going, cool, I did a good job. They're happy with me. We're all winning together. And so it's, it's kind of a ripple effect of, my immediate area of effect is mostly going to be, the people that are working, and then it's the people that they're working with, and, anyone else I can provide information to as well, doing things like podcasts or, Project FBA is a website that helps DIY sellers. So people that might be too small for the agency build their own company. And it's all, it's all about that positive impact at the end of the day. Like that's what you go home and go, okay, I feel good about this.
I love it. I love it. And what's your process then? So so we've got the people side and the people you impact. what's the process that you use, or what are some of the key steps that you see in taking people on that journey?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good question. And in some ways, it's hard to break it down to just a process as well, right? Like you mentioned earlier, if a process isn't being used, it's not useful. And at the same time, I think the best processes are the ones that also allow for, the human touch, for creativity. If your process is every single step of the way, you're going to make the same thing every time. And especially in something creative like marketing, that's not going to work. If everyone markets the exact same way, nobody is winning this game. And so, what is the process? I think the principles that we really base it on are like transparency. I think that's really important, is, treating everybody here like an adult. When things are going wrong, you get to know. When things are going well, you also get to know. But we're not going to, pull the wool over your eyes and push something. I think leading by example is always a huge one, right? Is,
Yeah.
if I'm telling you, hey, be happy, or like build your work-life balance, or any of those things, and I'm not doing it myself, you're going to look at me, okay, he doesn't even know how to do this, like, so why am I going to be able to do
That's
this?
right.
But I think the biggest thing is really listening and adjusting. Things change. Like, what gives you a really good work-life balance during COVID is probably very different than it is now. People are back to traveling versus, before everyone was cooped up in their homes. And so, there was a time where having a ton of Zoom meetings and like playing game time at work was like, oh, this is so nice, I get to see other people. And now that you have like more of a social life, you're like, okay, I want to do more of my work and then keep my social life, externally. And so I think a big part of it is just like understanding how people are living, understanding what is going to, be that individual driver. And I know that may not be too much of a process, but I think that's kind of the key, right?
No, yeah. And I think, people define process in different ways. And, for some, like a process is like an accounting step-by-step standard operating procedure. But in the marketing sense, and oftentimes with salespeople, what I find is that there is art, right? And there is this conversation that needs to happen to find a common place of agreement and negotiation, and all the creativity that goes into marketing and things like that. And I think the framework that you just described can also be a thought of in replacement for a process, what we might think of as a traditional process. So
Yeah.
having a framework of, here's our core values, here's the framework and structure in which we operate. That's a great way to think about process in those types of environments where it's not a step-by-step standard operating procedure. What it is a framework to enable success within it. And I think that's a great way to think about process.
Yeah, I think, there's that Picasso quote that's something along the lines of like, you need to learn all of the fundamentals so you can know how to break them. It kind of plays with that. So it's like, here's your framework. Now that you know how to do it, you know how to, improve it by breaking it.
Yeah. And look, this can be a part of a company culture, right? There's no doubt that there are certain processes, right? If you're manufacturing pharmaceuticals, you want people to follow a pretty
Right.
rigid recipe, right? And then there are these creative things where, restaurants, you could, have a pretty standard recipe, but if you want to go to a really high-end restaurant, they're changing up their menu and they're creating and they're trying something new, but they still
Yeah.
have a common framework in terms of the way they operate and the types of food that they make and things like that. So I think it's really a perspective, right? It's the perspective through which the culture of your organization evolves. And that's why I often like looking at people and process. Sometimes I think we look too much at just the process and say,
Hmm.
well, let's just look at how the process. And sometimes we look too much at just, all right, do we just hire in good people and just hope that good things happen? If you don't have a framework, if you don't have a structure at all, then hiring in good people can turn into frustration for them, and they just end up leaving because
Yeah.
that framework or structure is not there. So I think that interplay between those two is critical in any organization structure. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean that's the key, right? Especially when you're talking about a service business. Like your people are your product, like those relationships, obviously we're selling marketing, we're selling results, but they go hand in hand with the rest of it. And if you have a client that doesn't trust you, it doesn't even matter if you get the results. They're still going to get good results and go, nah, something's not right with these. I don't feel like it's that way. And so Yeah, if you have process that doesn't work for people or turns them into automatons, that's going to ruin, the whole point of the marketing, the whole point of the relationship building. And it's knowing enough of the process to be able to do it that way and then being able to play with it. And it's a skill curve,
Yeah.
when you're in the beginning, you don't even have the process, you don't have the skills. So it's like, okay, you do all of the steps. And then once you've done the steps and you understand the why and the how, then okay, now you don't even need the steps because you get it. And like you're going to, improvise off of this in a way that's more effective or different, or will build that relationship in a better way. And so, it's that fun career arc of what you were talking about. If you hire somebody new, they need to use that process, they have to go by it. And once they really understand it and grow and can think more, then like, okay, here you go. You understand the market, you understand what you're doing. Now we trust you to kind of have that fun and play outside the box to see what we can come up with.
Yeah, you brought up a really important point there, which is when a person is going through that learning curve, they learn the why and the how. And so many organizations fail to really make that connection of why is this important. And it's one thing for a person to learn how to do the steps of an activity or how to do the process that they've been trained on. But in order for them to really be effective at improving the process or at not taking shortcuts or not causing things to break, if they understand the why, they're more likely, dramatically more likely, to actually do the right process and do it well and be able to create and add to the process improvements. And I think that's something that gets missed so often when people are like, we're just going to make a process. We're going to document a process. And then they document the steps without explaining or articulating why are these steps important. If you're learning something new, you want to know why, right? Like when we learned how to walk, we fell down a few times and we learned why it's important to do certain things, right? To balance. And, that why is so critical. How did, not everybody brings that one up. So how did you sort of make that a part of the way you think about process and learning and training?
Yeah. I mean, one of our fundamental values, right? We only have 4 core values for this company, is innovation. And particularly in a space like marketing, I said it earlier, if everyone markets the exact same way, nobody wins. So you always have to be doing something a little bit different, a little bit innovative. But if you tell people, here's our process, learn how to do the how. And like you said, all they do is the how, but they don't understand the why. You can't innovate because you can't change something if you don't understand the why. You just say, okay, I know these steps, but I don't know why I'm doing the steps. So I can't change them because if I don't actually understand the steps, I don't understand how to do the steps, I can't have that perspective. And so if everybody understands the why between, okay, this is why we're doing this. This is, you do it this way because otherwise this could happen. I always try, like in our SOPs, to include stories of like, because sometimes you'll have the same logical path. I'm doing it this way, but what if we did it this way? Like, okay, well, 2 years ago we tried it, and like, here's your anecdote of why that didn't work. And those kind of things really help guide people towards innovation, because you say, okay, here's some pitfalls, here's the why. And if I understand the why, then you can say, ooh, I figured out a how that gets us to that why faster. And so it's so important that everybody knows, why you're doing the things that you're doing. It also just adds meaning to your lives. If you're just doing steps to do steps, it's going to be really hard to enjoy that job.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I love that perspective. I love the things that you've been sharing. If folks are interested, if they're listening to this, they're interested in learning more about Search Nurture or Project FBA, if they're interested in learning more about the wisdom that you've been sharing here, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you, Spencer?
Yeah, I think the first place is going to be LinkedIn. It's where I'm most active. Spencer Padway is my name. I am the only Spencer Padway. So you can just type that into LinkedIn. Feel free to add me, shoot me a message there. If you're specifically interested, in Project FBA or in Search Nurture, help with, retail or e-commerce services, searchnurture.com has a great contact form, has our phone number. Absolutely feel free to fill those out or, shoot us a call. We're always happy to help people out or answer questions, talk, any of those things.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on this episode of Optics in Action. Thank you very much, Spencer. And we look forward. I'm sure our audience is going to have some great takeaways from the wisdom you've shared.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks again for having me.
Hey there. My name is Ryan Weiss, and I am the host of the Optics in Action podcast, where we spotlight visionary leaders who bring clarity and innovation to their industries. If you are interested in being a guest, or if you know someone who would be, you can find more information about the podcast and listen to previous episodes at opticsinaction.com. We'd be thrilled to have you on the show and can't wait to hear your story.